So, energized franchisees, it's really the time to imagine a future. So I always look out 5, 10, 20 years, and I like to ask myself various questions. The biggest question I ask is, what if? What if the world was going to be different? We're so caught up in business as usual that we often can't see beyond the end of the day, the end of the week, the end of the month, or even the end of the quarter. We're focused in on what we need to do. And really, as a futurist, I help my clients start to break out the boundaries of that restrictive thought. Even though it's very useful from an operational sense, it's very restrictive from a visioning perspective. So this presentation is about opportunity, it's about cultural change, it's about really lifting the lid on some of those things that I think are going to come into the world of franchising. I generally start my presentations talking about industrial revolutions. Back in the year 1760 or so, we saw energy and transportation, communications go through massive spurts of innovation and change, and everything from the way that we fuel our engines in trains through to the printing press and other mechanisms of momentum and change in the Industrial Revolution really forced us forward into a new world. That new world is the fourth industrial revolution. So now everything's connected by the internet. We've got renewable energy. We've got social media and communications that run faster than ever. And we've got the ability to have new forms of transportation that take us further and farther before. But really, the industrial complex and this industrial revolution has kind of ground to a halt as part of this COVID-19 global pandemic. And it's really taken a pandemic to see a failure across the industrial complex as a whole. Everything from energy, transportation, food supply, into schooling and the police, every single system that we see surrounding us has been affected by the pandemic and by that halting of the economy somewhat. Yes, we're starting to crawl back into existence. Yes, there are some franchisees and franchisors doing incredibly well at this time, but it's taken a hit. And now's the time to really stop and think about what the opportunities are to rethink the world, think about innovation. We're seeing some cultural change that we can't deny. And now's the time to step forward into a future that's more equitable and provides more opportunity for all. And now this future that I call infinite humanity is something where we've still got communications, we've still got transportation, we've still got energy, and it's still connected by the internet, and it's going even further into fields of innovation and investment. But now we've got this dimension of biology and ecology that we have to pay attention to. We're human, we're biological creatures. The environment that we live in is incredibly important, incredibly fragile, and we have to do things to really step up to protect that. And I think that in the business of franchising, we've got a huge responsibility to really create sustainable business. Now, we've seen some signals of accelerated change out there, so I'm going to go through that. One of the things I started doing when I started researching this particular keynote was to look at the landscape of franchising out there. Everything from retail, food services, commercial and residential services and beyond. We're seeing a good mix here. We're seeing lots of opportunity, multi-billion dollar businesses out there that are really creating like tens and hundreds of thousands of jobs. I think 1.9 million Canadians work in franchises today. So it's super exciting times. But this is all going to change a little bit as we see these sort of ebbs and flows of stresses and threats, but opportunity in the world sort of come to us. Now, what's really interesting is, as part of the pandemic, everyone's gone to mobile. 1.6 trillion hours have been spent on mobile in 2020 to date. So if your business is not on mobile or your mobile isn't optimized, then you're really going to miss out on the wave of business that could come to you. And with that comes an e-commerce side of everything as well. If you're not thinking about having a capability online that can sell product, whether it's food, whether it's clothing or whatever, or even booking appointments, then you're really going to miss out here. So, this is a call to action for everyone. People are online, and typically with business, people are online first. They're typically ordering, and then they're going to the shopping centers and the malls and the places to pick up what they ordered. So it's a complete change of behavior in a way. But what we've also seen is contraction and some growth as well. But there's been contraction across a number of different industries. So this is a particularly worrying chart from IBM on the changes that have actually happened. Everything from consumer electronics, consumer applications, men's, home, women's products and whatever have really contracted greatly. Yes, they're starting to recover, but it's not going to recover in the same way as we found before with the burgeoning industry in all these areas. We've got things like beer, wine and liquor stores absolutely booming. Here in Toronto, my local brewery is it's called Henderson Brewing. It's now one of Canada's top 200 fastest growing companies. It quadrupled its revenues during the pandemic. So if you can change quickly, if you think differently about the world, then we can really start to rethink how we do business. And sometimes it's just a small change that can make a big difference. Now, I talk about change, and change is inconvenient. Change is inevitable, and you either change or change happens to you. And we have to constantly evolve. We have to really rethink our business often and really think, how's the business going to be in 6 months, 12 months' time? We can't just rely on our product lines and the way that we work to be consistently performing. So we have to ensure that our websites are working. We have to ensure that our processes in stores are working, in malls, that people can find us, that we can step up into a better form of marketing. We can put videos out there through YouTube, and we can use influencers to help really drive interest in what we do. But really, I think that these are the 4 things that I'd like franchisees to start thinking about. Being sustainable, having that sustainable mindset, being engaging with the consumers, with the franchisors, with the market as a whole, and being supportive of the community and supportive of the overall ecosystem of franchising. But as part of that, I'm hugely passionate about the global movement that is the circular economy. It's the idea that we can reduce, reuse and recycle. And what's interesting about this is it's not only running your business better, it's creating entire new industries as a whole. There's about $2 trillion in benefit, they think, from running as your business as part of a circular economy program, reducing raw materials, increased employment, innovation in those areas. And people are really switching on to this new way of working. And that connection is really valuable from a business development perspective as well. And part of this presentation, I'm just going to look through the lens of the circular economy, retail shifts, food supply, automation, and what we can do with artificial intelligence and robotics, wellness and creativity, how we can support different communities that maybe we haven't considered supporting wholeheartedly before. Okay, let's look at retail. Probably the first thing we think about when we think about franchises is the retail stores, the QSR, people providing food in ways that are efficient. And I think that we need to look at new players in the market. Now, Round 2 isn't a franchise business. It's an entrepreneur called Sean Wotherspoon, and his colleagues have built this amazing multi-million-dollar empire of reselling clothing. So the idea of thrift stores evolving into something that's high fashion and really in demand, it's hugely interesting to me. I think that we're going to see franchises pop up in this particular space over the next sort of 12 to 18 months. In fact, people are buying used clothing and used shoes and used jewelry and sunglasses and such like 21 times more than any other new clothing. So we've kind of got this shift and this change, and people are starting to think about the sustainability, and the people that the hype beasts, the kids that want to dress like they're rap superstars or whatever, are really dressing in vintage clothing. Now, the growth in this market, if you really get down into the numbers, is going to be incredible. Over the next 4 years, we're going to see a massive $36 billion growth just in that resale market. And that's much more significant than the $28 billion growth we're going to see in new clothing and new shoes and new merchandise that's coming off the shelves. So this is something to pay attention to. I'm hugely excited about this. And I'm also a bit of a sneaker freak. Some of the signals that I see out there are sneakers like this this particular one here, the Jordan 1 Retro High Off-White Chicago. So Nike, Jordan working with Virgil Abloh from Off-White. So haute couture working with streetwear brands. And this was $180 if you managed to get this on day one of it being available. And it's over $5,000 now. Now, there's this strange economy, and I don't quite understand why there's so much hype, but it's really going to be something that we can lean into as franchisees. Okay, let's look at food supply. And now we really have to rethink how we're providing food to people. Now, the world's best restaurant is Noma. It's in Copenhagen. And when the pandemic hit, they moved fast to rethink what they provided. No one was going to sit indoors and eat a 5, 6, 7, 12-course meal, even though it's incredible. They just wouldn't take the risk. So what did they do? They simplified. They produce one burger. They sell beer. They have 3-hour queues around the block every single day. And this kind of innovation and noticing cultural change is something that we have to do. You know, we need to look at what we do offer, and then just really simplify what we do and how we present that out to the world. And this is kind of survival at this point in time, but this could be an entirely new model. And imagine if you had a quick service restaurant that only sold one kind of cheeseburger, but it was the best cheeseburger you ever ate. It's not such a terrible idea. And then with that comes a more efficient way of getting people to buying food and getting out the way. So mobile only lanes in new kinds of drive-thrus, and you've got Starbucks and Taco Bell. Chipotle, who never really did drive-thrus before, are starting to step into this arena. You know, $290 billion race for the perfect drive-thru. And there's lots of innovation happening in these new ways of servicing people. But one of the huge changes that's going to come to food is ghost kitchens. Now, I'm incredibly excited about this because imagine if you had a commissary that was a warehouse, and within that warehouse you could have 100 different restaurants. And say if you have a new idea for a restaurant, you can go from an idea to a whole new representation of food in a whole new way to consumers and promote it in days. Now, people are saying that this is a $1 trillion opportunity by 2030. This is going to be a huge boon to the franchise market. People like Travis Kalanick from the Uber success is going deep on this market, and he generally doesn't bet wrong on these kinds of things. So do watch out for ghost kitchens as well. So the United Nations say that 70% more food must be provided sustainably by 2050. So what can we do to provide food within the businesses that we're thinking about starting and operating? Well, we've already got restaurants out there. We can start to think sustainably about reducing the waste that we generate, you know, that circular idea of reduction, and recycling of the waste that we have. So zero waste restaurants is an aspiration, but I think we should be fighting towards that. We should start thinking about how we can use our waste to do useful things. So this is a particular company from Olds, Alberta, and I spoke there a couple of years ago, and I met this very bright young man, and he said, "Oh, I take brewing waste and I package it up in a special way. I put it in warm rooms, and I grow artisanal mushrooms and sell them to high-end restaurants." And he's built a huge business from this. You know, just a new opportunity. So what opportunities are lying around you right now? And how can you create your own franchises to do this kind of thing? And I also like to chat about my friend Ian the chicken. So at this point, you're wondering, why am I talking about a chicken called Ian? Well, there's a company called Just out of California. And Just, they grow protein. So Ian was chicken number one, and they took the cells from Ian, and now they're growing chicken in bioreactors. And the growing of protein is going to be a major industry. In fact, you're going to start seeing that whole bioreactor and growing protein industry to be worth $3-4 billion by 2025. If you've eaten a Beyond Meat burger, the plant-based food initiatives are really driving forward. But fake meat and fake protein is going to completely upend that normal protein industry of pork, beef and chicken out there. So keep an eye on that, and maybe there's some opportunities there for everyone. Okay, being a futurist, I have to talk about artificial intelligence. I have to talk about robotics. I actually studied AI back in the 90s at university. It was very, very nascent and very early days. It didn't work particularly well. But I actually think when you're looking at your operations, whether it's a grocery store, whether it's a quick service restaurant, whether it's another kind of business, you can start to look at robotics to help you within those contexts to better serve your customers and to liberate you as a human to have better relationships within your business. Now, overall, we're going to see a huge boon to the GDP globally, and people are saying that this is a $15 to $17 trillion impact to business. Now, I actually think that artificial intelligence is going to touch everyone. In fact, everyone today has probably already touched artificial intelligence several times. If you've used email, if you've touched social media, if you watched a video on YouTube, even if you're plugged into Zoom right now watching this, then you've been touched by artificial intelligence. But I actually think that it's a wide and wonderful world. And here's some examples about how it's going to touch all of us. Okay, we covered a lot of ground in that video. I'm not quite sure we're ready for the sanctuary synths to be in our storefronts helping us out. But there's some really practical technologies in there. One of them I want to call out is Flippy, the kitchen hand, that kitchen assistant robotic arm. White Castle have actually rolled this out in about a dozen of its stores down in California and across the US. And it's interesting to see how this kind of technology is going to help us out. It's about efficiency in QSR. It could also be about liberating people to think differently about customer service if you've actually got robotics and artificially intelligent systems doing some work for you behind the scenes. But I can't ignore the behemoth that is Amazon. We've already spoken about e-commerce and the massive impact there. But I think one of the biggest impacts that Amazon's going to deliver is its Amazon Go technology, which is a completely autonomous store. Let's take a look.
4 years ago, we started to wonder, what would shopping look like if you could walk into a store, grab what you want, and just go? What if we could weave the most advanced machine learning, computer vision, and AI into the very fabric of a store so you never have to wait in line? No lines, no checkouts, no registers. Welcome to Amazon Go. Use the Amazon Go app to enter. Then put away your phone and start shopping. It's really that simple. Take whatever you like. anything you pick up is automatically added to your virtual cart. If you change your mind about that cupcake, just put it back. Our technology will update your virtual cart automatically. So, how does it work? We used computer vision, deep learning algorithms, and sensor fusion, much like you'd find in self-driving cars. We call it Just Walk Out technology. Once you've got everything you want, you can just go. When you leave, our Just Walk Out technology adds up your virtual cart and charges your Amazon account. Your receipt is sent straight to the app, and you can keep going. Amazon Go. No lines, no checkout. No, seriously.
Okay, it's a game changer. And here we've got the patent. And what's interesting is bringing that online component with your cell phone and you know, everyone's a member of Amazon Prime these days. And then bringing that to a physical location, it's a complete game changer. But what's going to really change everything is that they put you in the center of their product stack. You and the data that you produce gives them intelligence, and they can better customize the experience for you overall. But another game changer is they're going to license this technology. And there's a number of other companies like Microsoft and Walmart that are producing their own kinds of technology. And a lot of stores are going to implement this kind of just walk out technology. Are humans going to be there? Yeah. I mean, they're going to be there working to help curate your experience, whether you're buying electronics or whether you're buying food. But they're going to get out of the way of even stacking the shelves. And companies like Walmart have produced robots to be able to do that as well. Okay, from the robotic future to a very human future, the human future of health and wellness. I think the health and wellness is going to be a massive sector in the franchise area with massive opportunities for franchisees. If you actually look at some of the numbers, in Canada, 11.3% of the nation's GDP, or about $6,300 per person, is spent on healthcare. And what's fascinating about that, about 75% of that is spent privately. So there's going to be lots of opportunities to provide, you know, dental services, walk-in clinics, and whatever. I do think that there's some really new and exciting areas of healthcare around mental health and physical health that we can start to pay attention to as well. A company out of Toronto is called Futurist, and what they do is they provide therapies alongside the application of psychedelic treatments, things like mescaline, LSD, things like synthesized psilocybin from magic mushrooms. Imagine taking out 3 or 4 hours and having someone help you through traumatic incidences, or helping you really get better and stronger as a human. It's a pretty wild and far out idea, but this kind of psychedelic research is liberating us from the big pharmaceuticals futures that they're trying to push onto us into a world that's much more human. And Field Trip are opening offices all across Canada and the US right now. I actually think that these kinds of therapies are going to come to the franchise market. I also think that we're going to have people building out their own cryotherapy and flotation tank centers as well. So cryotherapy helps you with cellular regeneration by plunging you into a super cold tank. And in that tank, for just a few minutes, you can really start to feel invigorated and alive. It seems pretty scary to a lot of people. I'm a biohacker, and I was in a movie that's on Amazon Prime called Smart Drugs, and I tried this and a number of things like cold water therapy, and I think that it's the future of wellness. Okay, from wellness and health into a new future where we have to support creatives. Now, I'm a creative producer and I use all kinds of workspaces. I haven't had an office or a desk for over a decade, but I have to lean into spaces to work. I was in London a couple of years ago walking through Hackney, and I noticed this place called Containerville. Now, these are people that have taken empty parking lots and spaces that aren't being used today, and they've put shipping containers on them so that people can use them as offices. And this is good business. It's about $1,600 a month for a fully functional office. You can build them very cheaply and you can maintain them cheaply as well. In addition, you've got completely radical thinkers like my friend Elvina down in San Francisco and LA. I met her about 7 years ago down in Palm Springs at a conference, and she was telling me about this space where people can live and stay and work together as a community for only $1,000 a month. In a lot of places in big cities in the US, you'd never actually think about that. I live in Toronto. It's incredibly expensive to rent spaces to live. And the live-work dynamic is going to really break through. So this kind of communal living for creatives is going to be good business going forward. Also, what is good business, and something that I'm incredibly passionate about and really plays into the idea of the circular economy, is the maker movement. How can we repurpose things that we throw away? How can we 3D print? How can we fabricate? How can we build ateliers? How can we make our own clothes? How can we even build resale stores or any kind of business that we've spoken about today in spaces that are shared communities of people that are trying to be innovative and creative? So the maker movement is just exploded over the past few years. Hundreds of maker fairs, hundreds of maker spaces, incredibly exciting. But what's also exciting is online representations of that maker movement. So in the early months of this year, we saw a huge growth in platforms like Etsy. So Etsy had a 71% year-on-year growth in the first 6 months of 2020. And what's interesting about this is it is direct to consumer, which kind of goes against the franchise model. But it's also creators selling a huge amount of products in one place. Why can't we bring them all together in stores that we run as franchises, and we actually cut deals with the creators and support them in whole new ways? It's going to be good models of business. Now, one of the most fascinating stats that I found as I was going through this is somewhere like Etsy, you found huge growth in people being interested in completely new products that we never thought about. So tie-dye sweatsuits, and some of you on the call might even own one of these. The search for these on Etsy went up over 11,800% in the first 6 months of 2020. People wanted to be comfy as part of this pandemic. There's a huge business opportunity when I see signals like this. But one of the things that I think that we need to do, and I think that the market is calling out for, is the support of creatives that create video content. Now, Lego went around the world and they asked people from a whole bunch of different countries. They didn't come to Canada, but they asked about 4,000 kids around the world what they wanted to be when they grew up. And in the UK and the US, and we can use that as a good bellwether for Canada as well, kids wanted to be YouTubers. Why is this the case? The number one YouTuber in the world is an 8-year-old called Ryan. He unboxes toys and he plays, and his parents video him. And what he does is he makes $26 million a year. Imagine if we go to our communities and we provide safe spaces for our kids when they graduate from school to create all kinds of content, production studios, and really, we're going to see a huge revolution in media. And I think that we, in the franchise industry, can be supportive of that. One of the places that I found was supportive over the last few years was Vancouver Public Library in the centre of Vancouver. I lived there for 11 years, and I used to go in and use these studios with green screens to do radio interviews, to make videos, to record my podcast. And I think that these kinds of studio spaces is another huge opportunity to support creatives and to build new lines of franchise businesses as well. Okay. I've covered a lot of ground, and you're probably thinking, wow, how is this really relevant? Why is this going to come and change the whole landscape of franchising? Well, I think that everything that I've spoken about today is going to come into this mix. I think the addition of automation and robotics, artificial intelligence is going to change how businesses operate and how money is shared, how we can be more efficient, how we can drive more margins, and how we can think about new businesses. Businesses like ghost kitchens are going to change the food industry entirely. Things like Amazon Go are going to change any kind of business where people walk into a store to buy any kind of product. And we can't ignore this anymore. So these are areas to pay attention to. Eventually, the cost of being able to deploy these kinds of technologies and use these facilities is going to become very, very low. And that means that we can liberate our innovative spirit and think creatively about building out our businesses. So that's it. Be sustainable, be engaging, be convenient, and be supportive of your communities. I think that this is kind of a mantra going forward alongside the circular economy about reduce, recycle and reuse that we can really take forward as we operate as franchisees. The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams, so said Eleanor Roosevelt. And I think that what we have to do is dream bigger, know that change is coming, and recognize that we can be part of that change going forward. Thank you so much.